And the only way to get free of that, I believe, is to have an anti-war movement which has representatives of equal weight on right and left, so-called right and left, to keep the other side honest. And I think actually that's one thing it does. And it also can take advantage. Instead of being divide and conquered, why not take advantage of divisions? For example, this last Tuesday evening, the House passed the Sherman Amendment by a vote, I have it here, of 248 to 163. Now the Sherman Amendment cuts off funding for the war in Libya, cuts it off. This has not been in the news very much except for antiwar.com. Of those 248 votes, 138 were Republican and 110 were Democrats. To cut funding, to use the power of the purse. Now, some people will say, well, those Republicans only voted this way because it's Obama's war. Well, so what? Some Democrats only voted against the war before because it was Bush's war. So let's take advantage of that. And maybe once some of these people cast a vote against war, they'll be thinking, well, geez, maybe I did the right thing. Maybe now I have to be a little bit consistent about that. I'm not so concerned, frankly, about people's motives. I want their vote. I want their support. I want their money. That's the kind of anti-war movement I want. And again, to go back to this, Move On, not only did it manipulate that whole situation, Move On has manipulated a lot of people. On the left, they're even on the mass left, they no longer have any credibility. They're gone.
So what? There'll be a move on too.
Of course there will be. And that's why I think you need this united movement of right and left, because as I say, to keep both sides honest. But I think the Democratic side needs that a lot more right now than the conservative side.
Will?
Yeah, I was just going to echo part of that. Move on among the left anti-war movement at this point. Move on is a dirty word. It literally, you saying it, I felt my ire raising. I had a physical response, like because I feel like my energies were put into electing pro-war Democrats when I wanted to be a peace activist. My devotion is to ending the wars first, and my energies were put into because I feel like the peace movement was exploited by a group, and there's nothing I hate more. So.
Seth?
First, a quick comment. We started by talking about Afghanistan and the length of it, and I'm just reminded that the previous victim of having a war in Afghanistan was Russia. And look at how it took that empire down. I think we need to definitely play that up and point out that a war in Afghanistan is not winnable, and it's going to suck our money until we collapse, regardless. The most recent debate, McCain criticized all of the Republican candidates. And he said they all sound like isolationists, and he was very upset that he didn't hear that hawkish approach at this most recent debate. And I'm just curious, do you see all of the candidates that are running on the Republican ticket that they're reachable with an anti-war message? Obviously, there's some that are more reachable than others, but is there basically is there a kernel there that, regardless of who ends up getting that nomination, just because nobody there was seemingly willing to say, oh yeah, we absolutely need to continue this, that's going to be the hook to I don't want to end up with something like we ended up with McCain versus Obama, where it didn't matter who you voted for, you were going to get a war.
Gary Johnson reached out to me. When he said, I want to court a progressive anti-war vote. He talked to he scheduled time with me and met with me. John Huntsman has said that he doesn't think that we should be investing any more money or blood in Afghanistan. I do worry the same sort of thing where that it'll be like the Obama-McCain thing where, but there are I've got more hope that we're gonna be able to move things by what the folks on the right are saying than certainly what Obama is saying and doing.
Can I comment on that just briefly? I don't. So the main candidates, the establishment candidates, Romney, I don't know, Pawlenty, Bachmann, they are making some anti-war noises. Some. I don't think isolationism is such a dirty word, by the way. Some isolationist noises. But I think that's a reflection of what their base feels. And frankly, I think what Obama has taught us, and I don't think you can get a starker lesson, is that they're lying. The establishment candidates are lying. Wait a second, let me finish. The only game in town, and now, the only game in town right now, in terms of anti-war candidate, is Ron Paul. That's it. And well, maybe Gary Johnson, but Ron Paul has the biggest name and the most following, and you can trust him. He's been consistent.
So would you vote for him?
Of course
Yes.
I would.
Okay.
So
I have a follow-up.
So just there, I think that if the media is pushing a candidate, if he or she easily gets into the news, and when straw polls in Iowa and I think New Orleans show that Ron Paul is ahead, and those don't get into the news, then you know Ron Paul's the right candidate. You have a clue right away. And so he's the only game in town.
I mentioned this during the previous panel, and the thing is, here in New Hampshire, and well, maybe Will could address this, bird dogging works. Can we get all of these candidates to commit on video to saying things so that, you know what, if worse comes to worse, whichever one goes ahead and gets the nomination, and then suddenly they start reversing it, we go, whoa, wait a minute. We've got you multiple times on video saying, you're against this, you're going to pull us out, you're going to do this, because nothing really is going to hold their feet to the fire than their own words being put up against them, because ultimately they're not going to get away with it. People will go ahead and go, what do you mean? You said you were for it before you were against it. You're right there, and it's like you said you were going to pull us out. What do you mean? Oh, but things have changed. We've got to do that.
Yeah, I think we can.
I want to address the issue that you brought up more about expanding the storyline. Because I feel like in the Middle East now, and in Europe and Spain and Greece, that the people have basically said that this sucks. Whether it's like the fact that we're not going to have health care, and they're trying to increase the strength of the European Union, and even more so than it's been strong in the past. That we're involved in all types of shady economic deals, that they're taking away our health care that they promised us, and that there really is a broad narrative that's kind of sweeping the world now. And I mean, if on internet lists, people are talking about when is America going to come up and start taking camps and start really participating in this global movement of civil disobedience and unrest. I think that what I'm seeing out of Europe especially, but I heard it was taking place in Egypt, who knows, and I'm not there, but is that people in these camps are really, they're trying to create a new type of anarchist style government, where they're saying okay, we need to get food in. They're really organizing kind of civilization. They're incubating little civilizations within these camps, and they're really they're having seminars, they're having courses, they're doing workshops, and they're trying to create within these public spaces a place where people can come and kind of learn about, express their grievances, and learn about the broad story that extends to World War I. How was World War I financed? This is the Fed. How was why is it that candidates keep lying? Why do we not hear about why does Ron Paul not get talked about on television? I mean, I think that if you look at the demographics, you look at the issues, Ron Paul is clearly a front runner right now. And there's very little doubt about it. From the way I mean, he's a front runner. I think he's actually winning. And I think that if we need to start looking at this situation like A, Ron Paul's winning, B, people throughout the world are saying, this sucks. Like, not only does the war suck and like all of these economic plans suck, but these bureaucracies suck. We're saddled with these massive bureaucracies that don't even use the internet, that use fax machines to communicate. I mean, European bureaucracy is a joke, but like, you know, we don't do it much better over here. So I think there is an opportunity. I agree. I've had a few first dates that only were first dates because I talked about the Fed.
Where do you hang out?
But you know, I think there's like a fun that's beginning to take place, and like I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to connect to people in Madrid, you know, who are really, these are like professors who are coming out with their, you know, open source hack devices, like talking about new healthcare systems. Like there really are, like there is like kind of a solution set. So basically what I'm saying is that I think that there is an opportunity to really expand the conversation into like, why is this whole thing screwed up? And there's also an opportunity to start kind of addressing solutions, like outlining solutions. Like we don't have, like, because I've heard so many Americans, and it drives me crazy, when I hear so many people say, listen, like I know this is about oil, but like this is how we have to get oil. So like that's the way it is. That's the way it is. You know, but they only say that because they don't understand like the vast apparatus that's forcing oil onto us, and B, like all of the scientific innovation that could be there, you know, diesel, like farm fuel, there's tons of stuff, solar. People just don't understand the solutions because the media does not talk about the solutions ever. If you look, type in Linux or Drupal in like New York Times, you will not see articles about that. Compare how many times they talk about the iPhone versus how many times they talk about free computing. It's like a joke. So like, I think there is a way to aggregate this all together that would be really exciting to explore, and that's left, right, and center. But in closing, because this wasn't really questions, we just needed to diatribe, which I think is allowed here. You know, like the Europeans and you know, we have to connect this movement to just being like, yeah, the globe is crazy right now. We have the technology. We can do it better. Like, how can we connect to these like peace activists elsewhere, and people like activists elsewhere who are just like, screw it. It's, you know, let's move forward.
Yeah, well, a few of the things you're saying, specifically the anti-war movement, when you were talking about solutions and things like that, they never talked. The only thing we have to be careful about with solutions is I feel like when us as libertarians or anti-war movement in general, if we're talking about solutions and where we want to go, then a lot of times we're on the defensive, and then we're just constantly defending against why that could be wrong or why that won't work or this one part won't work. I think sometimes it's better to change it around and just point out like why something is wrong and like this is evil and it needs to end. And then once people realize the problem and why something's evil and why it needs to go, then the solutions kind of form on because it's impossible to predict. I mean, the solutions kind of fall in place after that, but it's pointing out that this is evil and has to end should be like the first step, I think.
Just don't do it on the first day.
Yeah, I wonder if you folks would just comment on your opinion about the international banking cartels. You see it online all the time. You know, the Rockefellers and these other families that own the Federal Reserve System and own the oil companies and own the military contractors and own the media. Say something about that.
Yeah, see their eyes, it's glazing over already.
Leave the cartels at the door.
How do you explain it? Can you explain it?
I understand and appreciate all those concerns. I get where you were coming from, but it overthinks the issue by a long shot, as well as throws so many people into a giant pile. Because I mean, not even every member of the Rockefeller family is for the war. I mean, that's the truth. I know this for a fact. I mean, that approach, when you start talking about anything that requires conspiracy, and I don't mean the legal sense of, you know, too much of a crime, but what people think of as conspiracy theories, you lose them automatically, whether you lose them toward wackiness or whether they just don't understand the links, because you'd have to go step by step and say it's this that makes, you know, I mean, if you want to talk about the military-industrial complex, that probably is only going to work with people on the left.